pull up a chair. There's something I want to show you. I've been going through some old recipe boxes lately, the kind with handwritten index cards, smudged with grease and flour, tucked into a tin that smells faintly of cinnamon. These belong to women who never wasted a single egg. Women who could stretch a dollar so thin you could almost see through it. And what they put on the table every night? It would embarrass most of us today. Here's what nobody talks about. The average American household in 1955 spent roughly 22% of its income on food. Today, we spend about 11%. We spend less, and somehow, we eat worse. That's not me being romantic about the past. That's just a fact that keeps nagging at me. So, what did they actually do? The whole chicken roll, a 1950s homemaker, didn't buy chicken breasts. She bought a whole bird, maybe 39 cents at the time, and she got 4, sometimes 5 meals out of it. Sunday was roast chicken. Monday was chicken salad sandwiches. Tuesday, the carcass became stock. Wednesday, that stock became soup, stretched with whatever vegetables were cheapest that week. Thursday, chicken pot pie with the last of the meat. Nothing was wasted. This isn't frugality as deprivation. This is frugality as skill. There's a real difference. The pot pie, especially, lard-based crust, thick gravy, root vegetables. It tasted expensive because the technique was right, not because the ingredients were. People who grew up in those households describe that pot pie as one of the best things they ever ate. I believe them. Dried beans were the secret protein. You walk into any grocery store today, and dried beans are still one of the cheapest things on the shelf. Nothing has changed there. But in the 1950s, beans weren't considered peasant food. They were just Tuesday. Senate bean soup had been served in the US. Senate cafeteria since 1901. It was on the menu every single day. There was dignity in the bean. A pound of dried navy beans cost about 10 cents in 1955. Soaked overnight, simmered with a ham hock and a bay leaf, served with cornbread made from scratch that fed a family of 4. The ham hock cost next to nothing. The cornbread was pantry staples. The result was something that people genuinely looked forward to eating. The lesson isn't eat more beans, though fine, sure, that too. The lesson is that these women understood flavor development. Low heat, long time, patience. Things we've mostly traded away for convenience. Seasonal buying was non-negotiable. There was no buying tomatoes in February. Not because they were purists, but because out-of-season produce was rare, expensive, and frankly not very good. So you bought what was abundant. In summer, you canned it. In fall, you root cellared what you could. Winter cooking leaned on onions, potatoes, cabbage, dried goods. This produced something interesting, real anticipation for food. The first strawberries of June, corn in August. These were events, not just ingredients. Modern Americans spend an estimated 40% more on produce than necessary because we buy things out of season. The price difference between an in-season and out-of-season tomato can be 3 to 4 times the cost. The 1950s housewife would have found that baffling. Baking was weekly, not special occasion. Every Tuesday or Thursday, depending on the household, there was baking. Bread, rolls, a simple cake, sometimes pie. Not because anyone was trying to be impressive, because it was cheaper and because the family expected it. What? A 5-pound bag of flour in 1956 cost around 49 cents. From that, you could make multiple loaves of bread that would have cost significantly more at the store, even adjusted for time. The math worked. It still works. But beyond economics, there was something else happening. The act of baking on a schedule, Tuesday is bread day, created structure and anticipation inside the home. The smell of bread meant something. Kids came home to it. Husbands came home to it. It was, in a very quiet way, a form of domestic anchoring. We've outsourced that almost entirely. And I wonder sometimes what we gave up when we did. They cooked once and ate twice. Leftovers weren't an afterthought. They were built into the plan. Sunday's pot roast became Monday's beef hash. Friday's baked fish became Saturday's fish cakes. The cooking was done with the second meal already in mind, which meant the first meal was made more carefully because it had to hold up. This doubled the return on every hour spent in the kitchen. 1 hour of Sunday cooking meant 2 dinners. That's an efficiency that meal kit services have been trying to replicate unsuccessfully for a decade. There's a word that gets thrown around a lot, intentional, usually in the context of self-care or lifestyle content. But those women in the 1950s were intentional in a way that most of us aren't, specifically because they had less margin for error. A bad week of grocery shopping wasn't just inconvenient, it had real consequences. So they paid attention. They planned. They kept a mental inventory of the pantry at all times. And what they produced, night after night, was food that people still remember decades later. Not because it was fancy, because it was made well, with care, with a system that actually worked. The system still works. That's the thing. You don't need more money to eat better. You need a different relationship with what's already in your kitchen. These women figured that out during the Depression and carried it forward for the rest of their lives. A roast chicken, a pot of beans, a Tuesday loaf of bread. It was never about what they didn't have. It was always about what they knew how to do. If any of this hit close to home, or if your grandmother had a recipe that stretched $1 into a feast, drop it in the comments. I read every single one. And if you haven't already, subscribe. There's a lot more in the attic where this came from.